So the Pixel 9 Pro launched about a week and a half ago, and I think this is the closest that Google has ever gotten to actually making something that competes with the iPhone. I want to look at these two phones. I want to compare the performance, the displays, the cameras, give you guys my initial impressions of the Pixel 9 Pro XL, and actually answer the question that if you are an iPhone user, is now the time to consider maybe switching over to Android? So first up, let's start with the design, because I think more than any other previous year, the design between these phones are probably more similar than ever. And this is a change that I actually really appreciate. I've been using the iPhone 15 Pro Max for the past maybe 7-8 months, something like that. And I've really grown to love the squared off design, love the way that it feels in the hand. I love the weight. And Google said, yeah, we're gonna copy that. Just make it a slightly different, make it a little different. I'm actually glad they did it. Now, both of these phones actually weigh 221 grams, meaning that they feel very similar in the hand. But also, this is the year that Google has made a device that feels very premium, and it feels just like it's right on par with the iPhone. So you don't have to give up any of the ergonomics of the iPhone by switching over to the Pixel. Now, I will say that one thing that I do miss from the iPhone is the action button, because in my previous videos, I've talked about how I map it to certain apps, more specifically the Tesla app, so that I can have control over my car from my phone very easily. But you can use quick tap on the Pixel. You can just tap the back of the phone twice really fast, and it'll bring up the app very similarly. So even though I feel like the button is easier and I like how it's instituted on iOS, you're not really losing any functionality by not having it. All in all, I would call this category probably a tie. Yeah. Now let's take a minute. Let's talk about the displays, because Google is touting that this is the brightest display ever on a smartphone, because this display actually reaches up to 3000 nits. Just for context, the iPhone reaches a peak brightness of 2000 nits, and more specifically for HDR content. Now, I will tell you that both of these phones, they show up great outdoors. They both get plenty bright. But in my short time that I've spent with the Pixel 9 Pro XL, you can't really tell the difference, right? So you have 1000 nits of extra brightness, and because this phone doesn't really sustain it for too long, yes, it's there, but you're not really getting a lot more out of it than what you actually get on the iPhone. So either way, whichever device you choose to use, I mean, you're gonna get a super bright display that works plenty well outdoors. In addition, you do also get 120 Hertz on either device, so that it is nice that you don't have to give up any smoothness when it comes to actually using the device. The animations on iOS, we've talked about this for years, the animations on iOS are great. But this year, I really feel like Google has really stepped it up with the animations on the Pixel 9 Pro. And it's mainly because the frame rate is a little bit more sustained throughout those animations. I've always enjoyed and loved the animations on the Pixel, but because of some performance issues or hiccups or frame rate drops, it never felt quite as smooth as the iPhone. I can barely tell a difference, and both phones feel very smooth. So if that's something that you're thinking about, I can't really tell a difference. You're gonna be fine either way. Now, as far as durability goes, the iPhone does come with the ceramic shield, which is supposed to be more resilient to breaking and actually more scratch resistant. But the Pixel 9 is also rocking Gorilla Glass Victus 2, I believe, which is supposed to be good for improved durability as well as minimizing scratches. So between these two phones, the fact that you don't have to worry about durability, it actually makes it easier to pick something that's just a little bit more in line with what you like. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about performance, because I've only had the Pixel 9 Pro in my possession for maybe a little less than a week. And so it's kind of hard to give like an in-depth review or in-depth information about the performance of this phone. Because if you've ever used a Pixel device, then you know that over the first 2 weeks, it's calibrating, it's improving the battery life, it's doing all these things in the background to make your experience better. Whereas out of the box, the iPhone is what it is. So there's not really a lot going on in the background that's going to change that experience. But I can tell you initially, these phones feel like they operate very similarly, and not necessarily from opening and closing apps, because both phones do it just great. When using this phone, or using both of these phones, both of them get warm under similar conditions. And even though both devices have a vapor chamber, you can still tell that they're getting warm from time to time. Now, they don't get hot where you're going to drop it out of your hand because it's just too hot to hold. It's a little inconvenient, but it is what it is. And 9 times out of 10, if you rock your phone with a case, you're really not going to be able to feel the heat that much anyway. So I'm going to call this a tie as well as far as when it comes to performance. For now, we'll see if that changes when I get around to finally actually reviewing this device and giving my like final kind of thoughts or something like that. But for now, both phones very smooth, operate very well. Okay, so moving on, let's just briefly talk about the software. And because I've done videos on iOS versus Android in the past, and however you feel about your preferred software experience, you can't go wrong really with either one. And it's mainly because over the years they've become more similar to each other and have very similar feature parity. So the iPhone to me is becoming more and more like Android, and the Pixel or Android in general is becoming more and more like iOS. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it's more of a preference, like a personal preference. Me personally, I enjoy the experience on the Pixel because it's just a lot more streamlined. And it doesn't mean that you can't get a similar experience from the iPhone, but for my personal taste, I find there's a little bit more of jumping through hoops to do things. Even though it's supposed to be simple for everyone, it's just not simple to me. And I don't want to hear anybody in the comments talking about, oh, iMessage and FaceTime. You got all of that over here on the Pixel. It's not iMessage, it's Google Messages. It's not FaceTime, you have Google Meet. All of it works extremely well and have very similar feature sets. So you're not going to lose any of that by switching devices. You might just have to convince people to switch an app, which I know is a huge mountain to overcome, but it's there if you need it. I needed to say that because I know somebody's going to tell me down in the comments, iMessage and FaceTime. Yeah, not a factor here. We're going to talk about the camera, but before we do, I just very briefly want to talk about battery life, because right now it seems like the iPhone is kind of the king when it comes to battery life right here in the States. Now, I know there's a lot of Chinese phones. The OnePlus 12 is actually really great as well. But when we're talking about like American-made phones, you pretty much have the iPhone and you have the Pixel. So this is kind of the golden standard when it comes to battery life. It's too early to tell when it comes to the Pixel because it has adaptive battery. It's got to learn your habits, all of that. But so far in my experience, battery life has been really great on this phone. I'm making it through multiple days because I'm doing lighter use than heavier when you're trying to test a device. I'm trying to use this device like a normal person would. And this phone has lasted me, I think I've had this phone on for the past 2 days at least, and I'm at 41%. So this has been lasting quite a bit. This to me is still the standard when it comes to battery life because the iPhone will last forever. You can't charge it very fast, but it will last forever. And I think the Pixel, I'm hoping the Pixel will be right there with it. Okay, so before we move on and we talk about which device you should probably choose or whether you should switch or not, I want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor of the video, MagBack. Now, if you're not familiar with what MagBack is, they make magnetic cases for your iPhone, Pixel, and even Samsung devices. And one of the standout features about this case is it's actually magnetic. So you can attach it to any magnetic surface, like a refrigerator if you want to watch my YouTube videos, or any YouTube videos for that matter. But it also works with magnetic accessories like the MagBack wallet. It has a slim profile, it's really great to the touch, really like the way it feels in the hand. And it does also support MagSafe. So MagSafe accessories, MagSafe charging. In addition to MagBack's wallet, that also is a great accessory that goes with this case, which supports up to 4 cards at the start, all the way up to 9. And it can also hold cash. So right now, this is personally one of my favorite MagBack accessories. Love the wallet, love the case. If you're looking for a way to enhance your accessories for your iPhone or even your Pixel device, check out MagBack cases. The link will be down in the description along with my code that you can use, MOTT15, that's MOTT 15. Yeah, check them out because they were so gracious to send over some cases for me to look at, and I really enjoy their accessories. Now, let's get back to the video. All right, I want to take some time to talk about the camera, and this is really hard to do, mainly because I don't necessarily feel like phone cameras are, it's not that they're bad, they're just not great at everything. And I always, like I will tell you always, I feel like a dedicated camera that's made for video or digital photography will always just be better. That's just my personal opinion. So understand that when I talk about these cameras, I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to try to keep it simple, but I'm not a huge fan of neither of the cameras on this phone for different reasons though. And I know that might be a hot take, but okay, let's start with the Pixel camera. Pixel camera takes very good photos. I actually like the focal lengths of its 1, 2x, and 5x lens compared to the iPhone, because I feel like the iPhone is not quite cropped in enough when you're switching focal lengths. And I know you can actually on the main camera switch the focal length from I think all the way up to 20 or 35 millimeter, and you can choose, which essentially is just a crop on the main sensor. But I like the simplicity of the Pixel camera. I feel like you can frame up shots very nicely. I also feel like the color accuracy in the photos are a little bit better to me personally than on the iPhone for photos. But then on the other side, you have the video on the Pixel, which is getting better year after year as far as the detail, the quality, the feature set. I mean, there's all these features that Google announced with the Pixel 9, such as video boost, you've got Add Me, all these other AI features, which are really cool. Like, I really enjoy that. I'm looking forward to testing it. But I will also say that I hate the video, or at least the selfie video on the Pixel. And it's mainly because there's so much image processing going on that it doesn't look natural whatsoever. Like, whenever I'm recording video of myself, I feel like I look very orange, and I understand it's trying to pick up the high dynamic range, so it's trying to not blow out the sky behind you while also exposing for the midtones, facial features, making sure that as black people we don't look ashy, right? It's doing all of these things in the background. But I feel like they kind of dialed it up this year that it doesn't look even normal. Like, I look like a pumpkin in some of these videos. So I'm not a huge fan as far as that aspect. Maybe if Google gave you the option to turn that off, then that would be great. And so from that standpoint, I actually prefer the video that comes out of the iPhone. You just have a lot more control that you're able to do. It can shoot in different frame rates all the way up to, I believe, 8K. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But you just have a lot more flexibility. You don't have to offload anything to the servers to get better video capability, which is still, it's faster. This year, Video Boost is faster, but it still takes time. If I want to upload that to social media, I want to be able to do it like right away from my phone. And so I got to give credit to the iPhone for that, because the video and the simplicity of like creating great video out of it is just a lot easier. Doesn't mean the Pixel's not far behind it. I just really wish that they would not process the images so much. Let me know your thoughts about the camera. Which one do you prefer? Is that a deal breaker for you when you're thinking about switching over to another device? I'd be really interested to know you guys' thoughts. Okay, so with all of that being said, if you've been considering switching from the iPhone over to a Pixel or Android device, more specifically the Pixel 9 Pro, should you? I say yes. Especially if you just want to change it up a little bit and have something new and exciting. The utility that comes out of a Pixel phone supersedes what the iPhone is able to offer. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm just saying there's more useful and helpful features that come out of a Pixel phone than out of an iPhone. And most of the apps that people use, unless you use exclusively Apple apps, I'm talking about apps like Gmail, YouTube, Keep, Google Docs, things of that nature, they're better on the Pixel, especially with Gemini integration. We didn't even talk about any of the Gemini stuff because I'm going to be making a video on that coming down the road. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead, subscribe, hit that bell, look for that video to come down the pipeline in just a bit. But I just feel like the Pixel is more useful. It is my preferred device over the iPhone. The iPhone always will stay my secondary device. But if you've been considering, now's the time to switch, because there's very little that, in my opinion, that would keep you from having a very similar experience and or possibly even a better one. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Have you been thinking about switching from an iPhone to the Pixel? Are you going to be switching? And if so, which device are you looking at? Once again, this experience has been with the Pixel 9 Pro XL. But I want to thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.